The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a completely new obsession.
It really did.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals.
Yeah, from red carpet surprises to, those massive social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly why Pete Davidson's Lizzo joke has absolutely everyone picking a side.
Oh, the internet is still on fire over this one.
Totally. So I want you to picture this. It is May 10th, 2026. You are sitting in this packed, dimly lit theater in Los Angeles. The air in the room is like practically vibrating.
Yeah, you can feel that tension.
Exactly. It's that electric, nervous energy you only get when a room full of A-list celebrities knows that absolutely nobody is safe. We are at Netflix's massive live event, The Roast of Kevin Hart.
It was basically a modern gladiatorial arena, just with way more designer evening wear and a lot more anxiety.
Spot on. And right in the middle of this total chaos, comedian Pete Davidson steps up to the podium.
Right.
He looks out into the audience, spots pop star Lizzo, and just delivers a joke that instantly goes viral. He says, "What's left of Lizzo is here. Either that or Eddie Murphy just premiered the newest Klump."
Oof. Just brutal.
And the camera cuts straight to Lizzo. She's sitting there in this stunning silver gown, and she is laughing and clapping along with the rest of the theater.
Which, on the surface, that is your classic roast moment. A brutal jab, a good-natured reaction from the target, and then the show moves on.
But here's the mystery we are tackling today. How does a joke that reduces a woman to a fat suit movie character become the universally accepted highlight of the night, while other jokes bomb so hard the whole room freezes?
That is the big question.
Right. We are going to dive straight into the reality of Lizzo's dramatic physical transformation, the public's highly selective outrage over offensive comedy, and the actual psychological science behind how stand-up comedy quietly reshapes our own self-esteem.
Yeah, and to really understand the impact of that, 5-second interaction, you have to understand the environment it happened in. This roast was designed to be an absolute spectacle.
Oh, it was massive.
You had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson making this epic entrance to Queen's "We Will Rock You," and he just booms into the microphone, finally, Daddy's home.
And then you had Tom Brady walking out with a gift for Kevin Hart.
Oh my gosh, the jersey.
Yes, he hands him this tiny newborn-sized football jersey, and when Kevin snatches it away, Brady just straight up calls him a hobbit.
It was just 3 hours of relentless, highly targeted insults.
Yeah.
But, what I found incredibly revealing in the entertainment coverage of this event, specifically from this writer named Madison Sinclair speaking to The Independent, is what didn't make it to air.
Right, the cutting room floor material.
Exactly. Sinclair revealed that there were jokes left out that pushed the boundaries, significantly further. They cut a joke about Lizzo's role as a stripper in that 2019 movie Hustlers, implying she broke barriers because the polls weren't properly enforced. Yeah, and they cut a jab at Kevin Hart's reaction to the Me Too movement, basically joking that he was shocked people were actually allowed to say no to things.
They even cut a critique of Hart attending the controversial Saudi government-funded Riyadh Comedy Festival.
Right, the human rights joke.
Yeah, the joke essentially argued that nobody should be forced to listen to his comedy sober on a human rights level.
The fact that these specific jokes were cut tells us that even in a room full of absolute flamethrowers, there is an invisible line.
And this is where I really struggle with the whole concept of the roast. People always defend roasts as these, isolated pressure valves for society.
Like a free pass.
Exactly. But honestly, looking at the fallout, a roast feels more like a biosafety lab for toxic ideas. We pretend we can put on hazmat suits, seal the heavy steel doors, and just play with these volatile cultural viruses.
Like racism, body shaming, trauma.
Yeah, just for laughs. But the ventilation system is always connected to the outside world. Those ideas leak out. You can't unhear the punchlines, and the targets still have to go home and live in their actual bodies.
That contrast right there is the core of this entire situation. You have the public performance of taking a joke, Lizzo clapping and laughing in that theater.
Right.
And then you have the intensely private, grueling reality of what it actually took for her to change her body. The joke implies this careless punchline, But her physical reality is a story of profound biological and psychological shifts.
And wait till you hear the actual numbers behind those shifts, because they are staggering.
They really are.
We are talking about a physical transformation where Lizzo shed nearly 60 pounds.
Wow.
She dropped 10.5 BMI points, and she lost 16% of her body fat. But here's the critical distinction. She absolutely refuses to call this weight loss. She very intentionally calls it weight release.
I love that framing. And the mechanics of how she achieved this weight release are incredibly revealing. She was very transparent on the Just Trish podcast about the fact that she briefly experimented with GLP-1 medications.
Which is kind of the ultimate modern paradox. You have access to the most effective appetite suppressant in pharmaceutical history. It's working, and you consciously choose to walk away from it.
Right. She admitted the injections made her feel full, but she stopped taking them because she wanted a mind-over-matter approach. She wanted to fundamentally change how her body interacted with food, rather than just masking the hunger signals chemically.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and she realized that her previous diet, even though it was entirely vegan, was actually working against her biology.
This was fascinating to me when I read it. She had been vegan for years. But to feel full, she was relying super heavily on processed fake meats, bread, and rice.
Yeah, lots of carbs.
Exactly. And from a biological standpoint, when your diet is entirely processed carbohydrates and fake proteins, you are essentially putting your body on a blood sugar roller coaster. Oh, absolutely.
You get this massive insulin spike followed by a huge crash, which triggers your body to release ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone.
Yeah.
So you are constantly fighting your own endocrine system.
Precisely. You are basically starving on a cellular level while consuming excess calories. So she completely abandoned the vegan diet. She started incorporating whole animal proteins like chicken, fish, eggs, and beef.
Right.
And by shifting to whole proteins, she started triggering satiety hormones like leptin completely naturally. The mental fog lifted, her energy stabilized, and she felt satisfied without physically expanding her stomach with artificial ingredients.
It is a perfect example of prioritizing nutrient density over food ideology. And she also just got a massive blind spot in her daily intake. She realized she was drinking up to 1,200 calories a day just in coffee drinks.
1,200, that is wild.
I know. That is more than half of a standard daily caloric requirement, entirely hidden in liquid sugar and cream. But fixing the biological inputs was really only half the battle. The psychological mechanism driving the consumption is arguably way more important. Lizzo talked extensively about silencing what she calls food noise.
Right, the mental aspect. And we have to look at the context of her life to understand that noise. She was facing a highly publicized lawsuit from 3 of her former dancers alleging a hostile work environment.
Which she called ridiculous and gut-wrenchingly difficult.
Exactly. And when you are dealing with that level of public scrutiny and legal pressure, your body is just flooded with cortisol.
And cortisol is a stress hormone that historically signals to the body, hey, we are in danger, store energy. It drives cravings for high-fat, high-sugar foods. Binge eating in that scenario isn't a moral failing, you know? It is a biological coping mechanism driven by intense stress.
Wow. Yeah.
She admitted that when she was sad or anxious or working relentlessly, she would eat until she was physically uncomfortable and then hide it from everyone. Overcoming that psychological dependency, like really rerouting how she processed stress, that was the real victory.
And through all of this, she is actively redefining what body positivity actually means. She still considers herself big. She still wears plus-size clothing and has the same belly and thighs. She is just a smaller version of herself.
Right.
She said that body positivity isn't about staying the exact same size. It is the radical act of daring to exist loudly and proudly in a society that told you you shouldn't exist.
It is a vital reframing. She is detaching her fundamental self-worth from a static physical state.
I really love this specific phrase she uses, weight release. I was thinking about this, and it reminds me of decluttering a house.
Oh, I like that.
Right. When you say you lost your keys, the implication is that it was an accident, you are a victim of circumstance, and you subconsciously want to find them again.
Yeah, you go looking for them.
But when you release something, it is an active, conscious letting go of something that no longer serves you. You are carrying less baggage, but you are still the exact same person living in the house.
That is a great analogy. And that level of mindful, deliberate ownership over her body stands in massive contrast to how the public, and frankly the room that night, reacted to the jokes. There's a glaring double standard in the outrage cycle.
If you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead because the double standard here was blinding.
Totally blinding.
An op-ed from Hot 100.9 broke down the specific dynamics of the room that night. The host of the roast, Shane Dillis, and another comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, delivered sets that relied heavily on racially tinged humor.
And Hinchcliffe operates on the absolute edge of controversy anyway on his Kill Tony platform. During this roast, he made a joke specifically referencing the late George Floyd, and according to the op-ed, the room went completely dead.
Like, dead silent. The black guests on the dais were visibly uncomfortable, and Hinchcliffe has a history of this. He previously made offensive comments about Puerto Rico at a political rally, and has made insensitive jokes regarding Asian and Latino communities without apologizing.
Right. And Gillis himself was famously fired from SNL back in 2019 for past use of racial slurs. So the tension around racial humor was palpable. It triggered immediate visceral defense mechanisms from the audience.
But while the room froze for the racial jokes, the op-ed specifically notes that the audience was curiously not taken aback by the body shaming directed at Lizzo. When Pete Davidson made that Eddie Murphy Klump joke, the room just roared.
Now wait, I have to jump in here. You say it was universally accepted, but if you looked online the next morning, Lizzo's fans were absolutely tearing into Davidson. There was a huge backlash from her core audience.
That's fair, you're right. The internet always has pockets of fierce defense, particularly from a dedicated fan base. But look at the immediate physical environment of the theater. Among her peers, the social contract of that room dictated that mocking her weight was entirely safe.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody in that theater froze. Nobody stepped in to say a line was crossed.
Which is wild, because we know exactly what it looks like when someone does enforce a boundary in that room. Cheryl Underwood put on an absolute masterclass in how to handle a hostile crowd.
Oh, she was incredible.
She took some of the most brutal jokes of the night, jokes about her late husband, jokes about her skin color. But she didn't just sit there and absorb it. She stepped up to the microphone, went completely off script, and delivered an unfiltered, expert takedown of Hinchcliffe.
I was cheering in my living room.
Right. She even warned Gillis about teasing the use of the N-word, telling him it could end up spooky for him. She ended up getting a standing ovation.
She demanded respect by commanding the stage and setting a firm boundary. But, it forces us to ask, why did the racial humor trigger that immediate protective boundary from the room, while the body shaming of Lizzo was accepted as just fair game?
Yeah. Why is society still so comfortable with weight-based humor, to the point where even the target feels obligated to smile and clap along?
Well, later in the episode, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming regarding the actual science behind this. But first, to answer that question, we have to look at the actual science of the punchline. This isn't just about hurt feelings. It's about how comedy chemically and psychologically rewires our brains.
Exactly. We have a study published in the Journal of Marketing and Social Research. The researchers looked at how gender and body shaming in stand-up comedy on platforms like YouTube and Instagram actually impacts the audience.
And what did they find?
They surveyed 104 young adults, a demographic that heavily consumes digital stand-up. The data shows exactly why these jokes are not just harmless throwaway lines. Over half of the people surveyed, 53.9%, believe that stand-up comedy significantly influences societal perceptions of gender and body image.
So the majority of us are fully aware that comedians hold real cultural power. But I was looking at the methodology on cultivation theory here, and it struck me that the mechanism of harm isn't a single catastrophic media exposure. It sounds to me less like a sudden traumatic event and more like a slow drip of poison.
That is a very good way to put it.
Like, you don't watch one stand-up special and immediately hate your reflection. It's years of hearing the same punchlines subtly rewriting your baseline for what a normal, acceptable body looks like. Is that how the researchers framed it?
Spot on. Cultivation theory suggests that consistent exposure to specific media representations gradually shapes a viewer's concept of social reality. It basically normalizes the abnormal.
Oh.
And the survey data backs this up perfectly. 40.4% of respondents said that increased exposure to stand-up comedy actually made them less sensitive to jokes about gender and body image. The slow drip builds a tolerance to the cruelty.
I want you, listening to this right now, to think about the jokes that get passed around your own office or your group chats. Think about the memes you see daily. Do you find yourself laughing at things today that would have made you wince 5 years ago? That is the slow drip in action.
And here is the statistic that reveals the cost of that numbness.
Mm.
41.4% of the people surveyed admitted that they feel self-conscious about their own appearance after watching stand-up routines that feature body image jokes.
Over 40%.
Yep.
Which brings up a massive contradiction. If we know definitively that these jokes make over 40% of us feel worse about our own bodies, and we know that watching more of it just numbs us to the stigma, why do we keep clicking?
That's the million-dollar question.
Why do the algorithms keep feeding it to us? Are we the audience, or are we the collateral damage of the punchline?
It is a precarious comedic tightrope, especially when you introduce self-deprecating humor. The study found a real split there. About a third of the audience, 32.7%, say that when a comedian makes fun of their own body, it positively impacts the viewer's body perception.
Oh, interesting. So they find it relatable.
Exactly. It acts as a release valve for their own anxiety.
But
But another 40.4% say it actively hurts, reinforcing negative views. It completely depends on the pre-existing self-esteem of the person watching.
which means a comedian standing on a stage has absolutely no idea if their joke is going to act as a moment of healing for someone in the dark, or if it's going to trigger a spiral of self-hatred.
None at all. And yet, the audience tries to judge the comedian's intent. The study showed 45.2% of people said the context of the joke, the delivery, the setting, significantly affects how they perceive it.
So they give them a pass sometimes.
Yeah, they are more forgiving if they think the comedian is punching up or attempting to provide social commentary rather than just, bullying.
But this highlights a fascinating paradox about trust. We grant these comedians massive platforms. We allow their jokes to cultivate our societal norms through that slow drip of exposure.
Right.
Yet when the researchers asked if the audience considers comedians to be credible commentators on gender and body image issues, nearly half, 44.2%, disagreed. Only 24.1% actually trust comedians as reliable voices on these topics.
That is just wild to me. We actively acknowledge that they are not serious authorities.
Yeah.
We don't trust their actual opinions, but we hand over the keys to our deepest insecurities anyway.
Exactly. We let them normalize the very stigmas that make us feel terrible.
The study perfectly captures how ambiguous comedy is as a medium. It has the dual power to challenge a societal norm or to brutally reinforce a harmful stereotype. And in the digital age where a single YouTube clip or an Instagram reel can reach millions of people instantly, that cultivation theory effect is amplified exponentially.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because this brings us right back to you listening to this.
Yeah. I want you to consider your own media diet. Think about the last time you scrolled through your feed and laughed at a viral stand-up clip making fun of someone's appearance.
It happens so casually.
Right. When you laugh at that clip, are you just enjoying a well-crafted joke, or are you absorbing a subtle psychological script about what an acceptable body is supposed to look like? Are you letting an algorithm slowly cultivate your own self-doubt?
It is a critical question for media literacy, because the reality of the people being mocked, the complex biology and psychology of their actual lives, is rarely as simple as the punchline suggests.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Building on exactly that, think back to that packed Los Angeles theater. Lizzo sat in that room, wearing a stunning silver gown, smiling and clapping confidently, while a comedian on a global broadcast reduced her identity to a fictional movie character in a fat suit.
And the audience roared.
The joke landed perfectly,
Right.
but privately. Privately, she had spent the last year entirely rewriting her biological baseline. She walked away from miracle weight loss drugs to fix her endocrine system. She abandoned years of veganism to stabilize her blood sugar.
Exactly. She silenced the overwhelming, chemically driven food noise in her head while navigating a deeply stressful public lawsuit. She redefined her own health on her own terms, releasing 60 pounds of physical weight and who knows how much mental weight.
So much strength in that.
So if a target of a celebrity roast can wear a mask of easy laughter while carrying that staggering level of complex, private, personal triumph, what invisible battles are the people sitting next to you fighting the next time a harmless joke lands in the room?
That is something to really think about.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.